guys, welcome back. Today we take a look at the Quadralite Atlas 600 Pro TTL, which is a light very similar to the light that I reviewed previously, the 600, not the Pro version. And Quadralite is a rebranding of Godox, so this is the same as the Godox AD600Pro. This Pro version is more expensive and more aimed towards certain pros who need certain features. And what they've done here is listened to what some professional photographers wanted and gave them that in a light, which I think is awesome when companies actually listen to their customers. However, the older one is still a fantastic light. This is a 600 watt second strobe running on a battery charging port up here, and you can replace this with a different unit which connects to wall power if you want. It looks kind of like this, except it has a cable coming out of it. But what I would say is if you know you're going to be both outside and inside, then go for two batteries so that you can have one on charge and one being used, rather than one battery plus a power adapter. That's just what I would go for, just because then when you're out, you've got two batteries instead of one. Charge very quickly, I think in an hour or even less. But if you're going to be shooting all day in the studio and you don't want batteries, then you've got the option. We've got a really nice screen, similar to the older version, a little bit of a different layout. This is a little larger so you can see the group from a bit further away. And this is nice and bright. I've actually had to dim it quite a lot using a circular polarizer. And it's nice and easy to see during daylight. This battery is wired differently, and this won't be cross-compatible with the other battery. This is 28.8 volts instead of 11.1 volts. And with that, they've been able to get much better performance here. This light gives us a full power flash every 0.9 seconds instead of every 2.5 seconds for the other version, and it was really awesome to have that high speed at high power, although I would be fine without that if I didn't have the budget for this. We only get 360 full power flashes from one battery rather than 500. You can turn the light down a little bit, or if you need the full power flashes, then just take another battery or something. This one has a slimmer reflector and it has a slightly longer body. The Pro version is also just a touch heavier at 3 kilograms instead of 2.6. It would be nice if there was an option to dim the screen, because currently it can turn off or on but not dim. In a very dark environment or something would be nice. We have a USB Type-C connector for updates and a 3.5mm jack for connecting to external triggers or lights. And there's a kind of trigger from Godox which is connected via USB, so there's a connection for that. The battery is shown on the screen, but we also have an indicator on this here which can be used when it's not connected to this. The on-off button is at the bottom there, a dedicated button for the beeping, which before was in the menu. We also have a much brighter modeling light, which is now 38 watts instead of 10 watts. It is a very nice bright modeling light, which is fantastic. I've already made a video about whether this is good to use as a video light, so I won't go into that here. They've improved the color accuracy of this compared to the other version, and the other version wasn't bad. I mean, it was still a fantastic light. Some photographers want the light's color accuracy to be very consistent across the whole range of brightnesses, and there is a test that was done online by someone else where this actually performed better in color accuracy than its competition. Most photographers don't need that and would be totally fine with the slightly cheaper version of this. And in the other version of this, there is a TTL version and a non-TTL version with quite a big price jump between them, whereas this Pro version only comes in TTL. And one feature that they've cut out of this is that it no longer supports an optical transmission, although that shouldn't matter to most people. You've just got your radios, which still work. It still has an optical slave mode, which you can get to from the menu. And this doesn't have HSS in the name, but it does have high-speed sync. The build quality is fantastic, just like the previous version, Reflector. It's now slimmer, made of plastic on the outside and metal on the inside, and the bulb and the bulb protector are both different. Similar sort of connection as the previous version. The bulb is sticking out further from the body so that it gets a more diffuse light with certain reflectors. Extension cable, which you can get, that connects to here and then brings the bulb up further away from the light. I did show that in the video about the cheaper version, and of course still has the Bowens connection. I did prefer the button on the cheaper version of this. There are no clicks anymore, which is much nicer to work with and also will be more durable. And it's holding really, really well, even with my big softbox. And I'm actually using an even heavier softbox than I normally use. It also has a connection point right there in case you want to have the light stand there. The Godox website says that you can buy a handle for this, so it's a little thing that goes there, but I'm not finding that anywhere online. This works totally fine with. Now, since the reflector is smaller than the previous version, then the umbrella stick doesn't have to actually go through a hole in the reflector. Doesn't lock with an actual screw, which I think is good. The screws normally can cause damage to the umbrella. A laser autofocus assist beam on here to damage someone's eyes. It really depends on distance and the duration of exposure. My recommendation is keep it off and put a piece of tape over that if you want to be really extra secure, and keep that button off and put it in a drawer and never touch it again. Ignoring the safety aspect of it, it is technically better for focusing in the dark. It does help with focusing for longer distances and saving battery. I prefer the slimmer profile and I'm fine with a small screen. This one does have a very, very bright screen. I've again dimmed it using the circular polarizer. And this one has a wheel that I don't like quite as much. I mean, it still works fine, but it just feels a little more stiff, whereas this one rolls a bit easier. With the X Pro, you can switch between groups using these buttons, which is nice. The photos in this review were shot on the Quadralite and the X1 trigger and the Phot-R softbox. It's 150 centimeter easy open, so similar to my Pixel Pro, but a bit cheaper and a bit heavier. And that blue background is a huge 2 by 2.3 meter pop-up background from Pixel Pro, which I really like, and it's got a gray side and a blue side. And this shoot ended up with a sort of travel theme, just because those are the props I had lying around. But in some of the photos, it kind of looks like horse racing because she's got a fancy white dress on and she's got the binoculars, but that wasn't the intention. And I want to mention that because I'm very much against horse racing and dog racing. They're pretty cruel. They're like a less violent version of bullfighting where the animal still dies, except you don't get to see it die. So the dogs get sent off to China in these hell boats and then get eaten and turned into leather. And the horses just get shot in the head when they're done with them. So let's dive into the menu. We've got the main dial here, and I really wish you could just start spinning it rather than pressing the button first, but it's not a big deal. Now it is very responsive, which isn't always the case with lights, so that's fantastic. You can spin it slowly or quickly and it'll still work. And we've got the button here for high-speed sync. We've got the main menu, which we'll take a look at. A button dedicated to turning off the receiver so that it doesn't work when you press the button on the trigger. Channel/group button, so if you press that, you can switch between the groups from A to E. Holding it down will change the channel from 1 to 32. Button for the modeling light, and if you want to change the brightness of this, then change this till it goes to the percentage, then hold it down, that's 100, and then that's 10, and it will have a fan above 20% or below 20% if it gets too hot, although that's only happened to me once after about 2 hours of having it on. That might vary depending on how hot it is where you are. And we also have the prop mode, and I think that means proportional. The higher the flash, the brighter the modeling lamp is going to be. The first thing in the menu is the color mode. I apologize, I don't fully understand the flashing behavior of this, but we should be in color mode now. And in manual mode, we'll see the flash duration show up over here. And this will depend on the power output of the light. And this will go down to about 1/10,000th of a second, which is a little shorter than what most cameras will do just with the shutter speed. And that's good for freezing action. And this is a little bit lower in the color mode. Next up in the menu are the two slave modes, a continuous or an interrupted modeling light. So this is what the interrupted one looks like. And that's basically just so that the modeling light doesn't interfere with the photo. Then the standby time, so how quickly this will turn off on its own. A light for the screen, so on off for 15 seconds. I like it to stay on. It doesn't seem to waste any battery. Then we have a delay, so an actual timer before the flash goes off. Pretty small increments, all the way up to 30 seconds. Units and alternative units, and these two options tell the light to first fire off one group of flashes, then fire off a different group of flashes. So for example, I would take one photo and the light over here would go off and light my background, and I would take another photo and then this light over here would light my subject. The main use for that is to have a second image which is basically the same as your main image, except it's a silhouette of your item, and that's so that you can use that second image to cut out your main image in Photoshop automatically without having to actually cut it out. The LCD adjustment, so this is just sort of to change how dark it is. The ID function, this is to prevent interference from multiple photographers using similar systems, and you want to have this match up to the channel of the slave units if you do have multiple units. I'm not 100% sure because it's not fully explained in the manual, but as far as I know, that's how it works. With both this and the older version, if you're very close to the light, then there are certain places where it won't work. So for example, here it won't work, and then here it will. So you want to be a little further away from the light with the trigger. And it was really awesome to have that high speed at high power, although I would be fine without that if I didn't have the budget for this. We've got the mode button here, so we've got manual mode where you control it manually, and then we've got the multi-mode, so we've got the number of shots and how quickly those shots will happen. So 10 Hertz is 10 times per second. I like that this will go down to 1 Hertz. I don't think I've seen that in other flashes. That's 10 Hertz. That's 30 Hertz. When you change the Hertz and the power, it will change the amount of flashes that you can do. Then we have TTL mode with +3 to -3 exposure compensation. So that's just telling the light to be brighter or darker than it thinks is correct. And this has been working really well for me with a softbox, without a softbox, bouncing light, full power. That is fantastic. 1/16 power with 5D Mark III, so that's 6 frames per second. One-eighth. So it's missing a few. 1/4. Not bad. Half power. When this thing overheats, it'll just slow down the amount of shots that you can do. And it took a lot of shots to get to that, not just the few that you just saw now. I've been shooting with this continuously, taking photos and doing tests of speed. So my conclusion is this is still one of the best strobes you can get and is at a reasonable price for the features you get. And I think most people are going to be fine with the cheaper version, the non-pro version, but this is a fantastic light with some features that some professionals really, really want. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you found this useful. If you want to support this channel, then you can get yours from the links down below. And don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.